Thank you, Sunny, and thank you for that wisdom and inspiration. It's another great way to start our day, and the momentum is continuing. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alice Reid, and I am the Leadership Council Chair for Centers for Spiritual Living. And this morning, we're going to hear from the executive team, and I'm going to begin as the chair of the Leadership Council, and then we'll hear from Ty and then from Sunny. So let me start by saying that it has really been an honor to serve Centers for Spiritual Living as your Leadership Council chair and as part of the executive team for these last 2 years. When we move through transitions, it's often a great time to reflect. And as I have reflected on my time on the Leadership Council, I've been serving this. I'm just completing my second 3-year term. Um, I have to say that the last at least 4.5 years have been really transitional. In addition to moving through a worldwide pandemic, we've hired and lost 2 executive directors. We went through a rocky transition, hiring a finance director to replace Mark Harvey when he retired as finance manager. We moved out of and went completely virtual in our home office, and we have had a hard time in the Golden, Colorado market trying to sell our building. And then we found it necessary to close the master's program, Homes Institute, this year. We saw decreases in revenues across the board over the last several years, and the largest decrease we saw was in committed giving from communities, which dropped by about 30%. And we saw decreases in our magazine subscriptions. Yesterday was for me, gave me pause because it marked the 5th anniversary of when the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a worldwide pandemic. And I don't know about you, but that was a really pivotal moment in my life, personally and professionally. Everything changed overnight. I was reading a piece about organizational recovery from the pandemic, and there's still a lot of information being collected, but there seems to be a pattern that they're noticing that the organizations that had real resilience were the nonprofits that had contingency plans and financial reserves. In March of 2020, we did not have a contingency plan. We did not see this coming, but we did have some very modest reserves, which helped to sustain us. And then we were able to draw upon the Science of Mind Foundation for some assistance and loaning us some money to continue to move through this huge time of transition in our organization. You may not realize how big the transition was, but in 2020, we had a staff of over 35, and today our home office employs just 19 people, and not all of them are full-time. There is some good news. I can see that some of our communities are starting to grow again. They're starting to bounce back, and as many of you may be aware, each year our communities complete an annual report. And what we've noticed is that the average number of members is gradually increasing. You're going to hear much more about this good work when we have our departments report out. Further, over the last 2 years, we have worked hard at stabilizing our finances. In 2023, our expenses totaled $4.4 million. This year, we're budgeting total expenses at $3.1 million. Over a 2-year period, we will have reduced our expenses by almost 30%. And some of these cutbacks are temporary, namely the staff salary reductions, which amount to about 12% of our total expenses. Much of the credit of the restructuring and stabilizing of our infrastructure that happened over the last 2 years goes to Reverend Michelle Ariano, our former executive director, and her team. And Ty Minkler continues this good work and has worked with his team to further develop the business plan that was started by Reverend Michelle and continues to stabilize our finances and begin the work of deepening our connections with our communities, because I think that's the next step. Now that we are finding a way to stabilize our financial resources, it is time to deepen those connections. I noticed in looking at some preliminary information for 2025 that there seems to be an indication that we are holding our own and like just slightly doing better than 2024 when I looked at January numbers. In my opinion, our International Home Office has done an amazing job and continues to provide great educational materials despite closing our master's program. Field Services supports our amazing licensed professionals by maintaining high standards and bringing in and affiliating with new communities. With every quarter, we see new affiliations coming through. And we continue to improve our communication and build on the platform that we have created over the years. We have communication tools and connection points through our magazine, through social media presence, through internal communications and events. There's always room for improvement in any organization, but given the challenges we've been moving through, I'm pleased at how talented and dedicated our staff are and the resiliency I am seeing in our communities. As we continue to find our footing and stabilize centers for spiritual living, we are turning our attention to our affiliate agreement and our strategic planning, and you'll hear more about that during our conference. It will take a little more time to get the traction we need, but I believe in our shared leadership model and our ODM, our organization design model, and I believe in our people. Most importantly, I believe in you and this philosophy that is transformational and so needed in today's world, as Sunny so beautifully spoke. The question that I think we need to ask ourselves, and I heard it in Gary's song and I heard it in Sunny's uh, remarks just now, the question we need to ask ourselves is, who do we want to be as an organization? In addition to lots of updates and information, we have an engagement practice so that we can include your voice in answering that very question. And I encourage you to continue to participate in breakout sessions tomorrow, as well as the things that happen every month. We have a Tune In Tuesday call that Dr. Sunny facilitates, where she asks a question and then she does some deep listening to you in the field, you who are on the ground walking out this philosophy. We've just started a thing called Touchstone Thursdays. That's an opportunity for you to do spiritual practice with your spiritual siblings in this movement. We continue to do our connection calls where we try to keep you informed and keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening, and then create space for you to ask questions and for us to engage with one another. And then finally, I encourage you to participate in the affiliate agreement review process. We've put out some surveys and have some focus groups coming up, and these are all places where we can become more engaged, where we can begin to really craft and hone what it is we want to be as we walk out these tumultuous times. There are so many points of connection, and we have done and continue to do the groundwork by stabilizing our resources and creating opportunities for contributions from you, our stakeholders. CSL will continue to do its good work, and now it's your turn. It's your turn to engage. It's your turn to become involved. It's your turn to bring your passion and your support to our organization and to help us to craft this next new reality for Centers for Spiritual Living. And I want to share just a couple slides with you now as I talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the Leadership Council. And so if you'll just give me a moment to share my screen. Just a second to bring everything up. There we go. And then start the show from here, begin from current slide. Great. Um, our shared leadership model provides opportunities for individuals to serve our stabilization and recovery as we move through the next iteration of our organization. So we currently have 22 councils and committees and teams, mostly volunteer, and these teams are accountable to the Leadership Council and supported by CSL staff members. You may be familiar with this. This is the model for our shared leadership. It's just been updated. It is really is a living document because as we move through the different iterations of our organization, as we find we need to move resources to some place that the field is requiring, some of this shifts a little bit, but all in all, I would say that central piece of this circle really does uh, uh, show us how that we are really centered in spirit. We're centered in God. And then we surround that with spiritual practices in the field. The Leadership Council is holds the stewardship for all of that. And then the spiritual leader and executive director work together to uh, bring the ecclesiastic and the infrastructure together. And then it is the executive team, which is comprised of the spiritual leader, the executive director, and myself, the Leadership Council chair, that really begin to move outward into the various departments in our home office and then all the committees that support them. It's actually an ambitious and beautiful model for engaging individuals to bringing things in from the outside inward and then back out as we look at opportunities for us to work together to continue to move this beautiful organization forward. In addition to the shared leadership and councils and committees, we have sibling organizations. And so many of you are familiar with this already. We have the Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, who've had a successful relocation to Unity Village and is about to have their grand opening late next month. Camp Cedar Ridge, which is doing very well up in Oregon and is a separate 501c3, and then our supporting nonprofit, the Science of Mind Foundation. All of this is held together by our governing documents, the ODM, also known as the Organization Design Model, and our bylaws. This year, Leadership Council brings only one resolution to our business meeting, the restatement of our governing documents. We attempted to get this approved by the delegates last June in an interim vote, but while it received a 97% approval rate, we only had 47% of the required 60% of delegates voting and did not have the quorum required to pass the resolution. This restatement does not change the nature or character of these documents, but it clarifies them by relocating bylaw type items from the ODM to the bylaws so that the ODM reads like a purely visionary document describing our culture and values and overall structure. I ask you delegates, when the voting begins tomorrow afternoon and runs through Friday, please vote yes for this resolution. It's an opportunity for us to clarify these governing documents, the documents that are really the bedrock our organization. And I believe that this resolution will help bring much needed organization and clarity to those governing documents. Finally, I want to thank those that served on the Leadership Council in 2024. This was not an easy year to be in leadership, and I'm grateful for the support of these wonderful leaders. Each one brought their own beautiful selves and skills and discernment to all that we had to do this year. And I trust that as we move through our election and we vote in new leaders and we have a transition that we will continue to be led by skillful and wonderful leaders. I want to thank you for allowing me to serve CSL during a time of deep change and transition. What I will say is that it has changed me. It has changed me in ways I couldn't have imagined when somebody called me up 6 years ago and said, "Have you thought about and volunteering for leadership?" I did say yes then, and I hope that over this time that I have been in service to our organization, that I have given back as much as I've received from our beloved organization. So, what I say is thank you again, and thank you to Centers for Spiritual Living as we move together forward to our next yet to be.